It's the Full Court Press with Eric Frandsen and Jason Walker.
Welcome back to the to the show that we're doing right now.
Following the local teams, breaking down the biggest games with in-depth analysis and team interviews.
There's going to be much higher expectations, sense of awareness of what we bring to the table.
Join the show by calling into 435-752-1069 or text 435-339-0321. It's the Full Court Press.
Rose, answer. Yes! Caught! Touchdown! They did it!
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome on in to another edition of the Full Court Press. Eric Frandsen and Jason Walker. Shortened show today. Utah Jazz are on the road taking on the Cleveland Cavaliers later on this evening. So later this afternoon, our time. So shortened show. We'll try to get through as much as we can. Certainly big news today. National early signing period for college football. Letter of intent day for a lot of schools and a lot of players, making it known where they want to go. Some who have already put their names in the transfer portal, others who have been recruited out of high school, some out of junior college. But Utah State adding a group of players to their future roster, 19 players, 13 of which are going to enroll starting in January.
Yeah, pretty much everyone who isn't a high school player. I don't think they have, for one, they actually don't have that many high school recruits. But I think everyone except two among junior college and Division I transfers will enroll in January in this next semester. The two that aren't, they're graduating in May, so they won't be able to join until summer. But still, overall, really good and a lot of potential impact guys. Well, we'll hear from Blake Anderson. We got a lot of clips of him talking about the signing class in general, but talked about how a lot of these guys are potentially, walk on the roster and, make big impacts. Those aren't the words he used. I'm kind of paraphrasing, but like in my own analysis, there's a bunch of these dudes that are going to contend not just for snaps, but for starting jobs on both sides of the ball and in just about all areas of the field.
Yeah, in fact, let's get to one of those clips right out of the gates. And by the way, if you want to hear his full press conference, unadulterated, sound-bited, I guess you could say, it's available on our Full Court Press podcast feed. But here's one of his statements about that. There's a number of guys who can step in and make an immediate impact with the team.
Most of these guys have the ability to come in and impact our team immediately, most of which will be here in January, which is even better, to add value to rooms and competition in rooms and create possibilities for guys to get on the field and be either significant players or even starters at their position. And for us, that was critical.
Yeah, this clearly is a recruiting class that has a focus on the trenches, at least in this early signing period. And that's where there's the greatest opportunity to step right in and make an impact.
Yeah, Coach Anderson is probably tired of me asking him about the physicality in the trenches and whatnot, because that's about all I end up asking. Is I lead with that question, then everyone else kind of asks all the other questions that I have. That's what happened this time. I had a couple of questions. I asked my one, because I was a pressing one, about the offense defensive lineman they grabbed, and then I had a question about, the Spencer Petras. I learned that it's pronounced Petras and not Petrus, so whoops.
Yeah, I'm glad I looked at the pronunciation guide before I asked the question.
Well, when you said that, I was like, that's not how you say it, is it? And then I saw the pronunciation guide at the bottom of the list. Oh.
Yeah, I just happened to be scrolling down and looking at all the different names there while I was waiting for my turn. I'm like, oh, scroll. Oh, okay.
That's worth knowing.
Yes.
But, yeah, there's a bunch of different intriguing players. I mean, there was one that we hadn't known about. I don't think he'd verbally, or at least committed on social media, at least none of the social medias I'm monitoring. Wide receiver Robert Freeman. But, yeah, focusing back on the offensive defensive line, that's where the meat and potatoes of this recruiting class needed to be. That's where, so far, obviously, they're not done. They're not done with that position group. They're not done with the recruiting class overall. But that's where they're going hard. and they've gone pretty hard.
Yeah, so some of these names we've already you've heard us to discuss before, but today it becomes more official. Braden Bailey, a defensive tackle, junior college transfer from Golden West. Marlon Dean, a defensive end, JC guy from Butler Community College.
By way of Georgia also.
That's true. He was a freshman at Georgia. Carl Nesmith, defensive end from Fullerton College. These are the JC guys that are coming through. And then an offensive lineman, Jared Pele, or is it Peely? Now I got to double check the.
You got to scroll down.
Pele.
I've got my screenshot of just the section. I don't have the pronunciation guide on my screen.
Pele. Yes, and so he's an offensive lineman. He's from Navarro College. So that's of the JC guys in the trenches. And then transfers from other Division I schools. Trey Anderson, brother of Teague Anderson, 6'6" offensive lineman who comes by way of Pittsburgh. You got Ricky Lolohea, a defensive tackle who's from Oklahoma State. George Miley, brother of Bo Miley, offensive lineman by way of Baylor. And then Maceo Williams, a defensive tackle from Kent State. So it's definitely an emphasis of getting experience and bigger bodies in the trenches, both offensively and defensively for Utah State.
Yeah, it's a good mix of Division I transfers and junior college guys with talent, some guys with size, some guys with athleticism, some guys with both. So they're bringing in a bunch of guys. And the thing is, unless there's a slew of transfers, the Aggies going to keep most of their guys in the two deep across the offensive and defensive line. I believe they're losing they're losing Holly Motuapawaka. I don't know if they're losing anybody else in their two deep on the defensive line. And then on the offensive line, I think they're losing one of their guards. I think Wyatt Bowles, I believe, is graduating. I can't remember if Wade Meacham is or not. I'm trying to remember if he's leaving as well. But there's like one or two offensive linemen. But overall, like your top 8 offensive linemen, you're keeping like 6. So if your top 8 or 10 defensive linemen, you're keeping like 8 or 9 of them. And you add all of these guys to the mix. So there's room for developing the guys they have, along with pushing them by bringing in guys that obviously have talent and size and whatnot, and all the recruiting accolades back in the day. So it's going to be a very competitive and ideally deep offensive and defensive line group for the Aggies.
Yeah, and I didn't want to leave out because there was a freshman offensive lineman. He's a big dude, Camden Jury, 6'7", 315 pounds, out of Gilbert, Arizona. But here's some comments from Coach Anderson about those players specifically and getting better in the trenches.
I do think we made some huge additions here when you consider same length, power, speed, and twitch. We've struggled to hold point up front on the defensive line, especially inside, and Bailey and Ricky and Taz all have the ability to come in and help with what we already have. We're not done there, by the way. We still have a couple more spots to fill throughout the course of the process as we go on into February and maybe even in the summer. We struggle with pass rush, and I think we found 2 of the best pass rushers on the market in both Marlon and CJ. I mean, when you look at, Marlon's a 4-star Georgia signee out of high school with length and twitch at Butler, and CJ, a first-team All-American kid out of California that can bend and come off the edge. We just feel like that all those guys help us up front to go with the returners. And then the offensive line, you bring Trey and George in January, both coming home to play with family, which is always super cool. Works out great for us. But everything we've heard and seen from these guys is they can make an immediate impact and really come in and fight for starting jobs. Start for, all the guys we just mentioned. They know that they're not promised anything. They have to come in and earn it, but all have the ability to come in and be in our 2 deep day one and impact maybe our roster as starters as well. And that makes us That makes us better. We'll get Jared Pele later. We'll get.
I think that did the thing where it cuts it off.
That got a little short.
Yeah, I don't know why it does. The thing is, I added seconds of dead air after a lot of these. I guess I forgot to do it for that one.
Not on that one.
My editing software doesn't like me. But yeah, you get the point because he's just talking about how Jared Pele, and then he was going to say Braden Bailey is another guy they're not going to bring. And that's basically the tail end of that quote there.
And speaking of pronunciations, I apologize. A mispronunciation on my part. Carl Neesmith is how you pronounce his name.
Neesmith, yes.
Carl Neesmith, defensive end from Fullerton College.
Yeah. So yeah, a couple of those offensive defensive linemen, Braden Bailey, Jared Pele, they won't be here until after graduation in May, so they won't be around for the spring practices. But obviously, potentially big additions there, both coming from junior college, both big players. Pele probably an interior offensive lineman, Bailey an interior defensive lineman. Both big bodies. Bailey coming at 280 and Pele at 310. So, but go down the rest of the guys. There's a lot of impressive names. So, really liking what I've seen from this recruiting class so far, and really interested to see if they do anything more with the offensive and defensive line. Be really interesting.
Going to the Full Court Press text line, if you want to weigh in, I always love to hear from you on this National Letter of Intent early signing period for Utah State football. 435-339-0321 if you want to chime in. 5338 texting in, saying it looks like the Aggie quarterback room will be a little less full next fall. They lost the San Diego high school quarterback to Michigan State.
Yeah, I believe it was Ryland Jesse. I keep forgetting his name, and I also got it backwards when I was writing my notes on him. It said Jesse Ryland, but yeah, the quarterback out of California, pretty solid recruit. He was probably one of the quarterback. It's 3-star quarterback recruit. Certainly like that, and they had him as a commit for a while, even over guys like Nevada and Oregon State and San Diego State, where others who were interested, according to 247 Sports. But then Michigan State swooped in last second, like in the last day or so, to get him to commit there. So not much the Aggies can do with that one. A Big Ten school comes in and says, we want him. And they're usually going to get him.
So tough to compete against that. And here's actually what Anderson had something to say about that today.
We had one last second kind of issue with the quarterback, with Michigan State coming in and grabbing him. That's kind of been the last 24-hour type deal. We saw it coming and been working it for a while, but ultimately, the Big Ten, just the idea of playing in the Big Ten pulled him.
Yeah, but hey, you know what? Utah State was in the final runnings with the Big Ten school, and that speaks well for Utah State and the recruiting that they have been doing. Yes, it stinks to lose out to anybody that you're trying to get, but that happens in college football.
Yeah,
but this recruiting class is not without a quarterback, though.
Yeah, and what the Aggies done, they're not going to have a high school recruit. They are bringing in a guy who's very experienced. Mentioned Spencer Petrus, graduate senior. I think was a starter for like 2.5, 3 years at Iowa. I think when I was adding up snap counts for some of the players, beginning making my giant roster spreadsheet for this next year's team, and he might have more snaps at quarterback than Cooper Legas, despite having, not played for like a year and a half.
Wow.
So he's an experienced quarterback. As I said, 2.5, 3 years starting for Iowa. Not the most gaudy stats. He was playing for Iowa after all.
It's more the system than it is him.
Yeah. So he's not a mobile guy. Well, he's either not a mobile guy at all or they just didn't let him run. I don't know which is which. But he's the guy who's got an arm. He's got size, big old 6'5", 230-pound, big kid, about as big as Levi Williams. Though obviously not as athletic. He'll push Cooper Legas for the starting job. And the way Blake Anderson's talking, it sounds like McKay Hillstead should still be around next year. Obviously, he might get buried in the depth chart if he's sticking around, but he's probably also getting assurances that 2025 starting job is, very much within reach for him.
Yeah, well, so I asked him about Petrus, and we'll get to his comments about that here in just a second. But I want to get back to our Full Court Press text line, 9315 weighing in, saying we need depth to be able to win lots of trophies, maybe make the 12-team playoffs. I missed one before that. So can Blake finally able not to stay in any press conference that we are not big enough on the O-line and D-line like the last 3 years? And then talking about depth, and then that's the difference between 6-6 or 10, 11, 12 win teams.
I mean, if he talks about next year them not being big enough on the O-line, D-line, then just there won't be any excuses.
We'll have to call him out on that because
he was already running a little thin on those excuses, because he's already been here through several recruiting cycles. I guess the only excuse you can say is, well, he's not perfect, he's learning. And that's kind of the one I'm going with. It's not ideal. You don't like for the coach to make a mistake and not realize that he has to recruit a certain way. You'd hope that he would be able to figure that out pretty quickly. But people aren't perfect, they learn. But yeah, if they're not big enough next year, and he's talking about them not being physical and they're getting out physical and outsized on the offensive defensive line, I'm not going to make any excuses. Just none. Not injuries, not I guess maybe injuries. If they lose like their entire offensive and defensive line to injuries, I guess that'd be an excuse. But not being too small, not all that banged up. There's no excuses next year.
Yeah.
Either you figured it out, or you just need to move on because clearly this isn't the right coaching job for you.
Or just there needs to be a different position coach to get that
too.
Dialed in.
Because obviously that's where a lot of what they're doing is huge. Is they're Blake Anderson's not in there coaching the offensive defensive line. He's delegating to guys who should do that job well. But it does, the buck ultimately does stop with Blake Anderson because he's the one who hires them and has to oversee all that. So
yes.
Next year excuses are going to run out. So this better work.
All right, we need to take a timeout here in the Full Court Press, but we do have his comments about a new quarterback coming into the mix and how that might set well with the other quarterbacks already at Utah State, and his other comments about some other players and positions and some brotherly love going on in this recruiting class. We'll discuss all that coming up on the Full Court Press.
People gather to give thanks, renew friendships, and celebrate traditions will always be what the holidays are about. This is Brett Green, President of Cache Valley Bank. As we celebrate together, thank you for making us your preferred hometown bank and trusted tradition for achieving your financial needs and ambitions. We wish you a year filled with wonderful memories, good times, safety, and lots of happiness. We think you deserve it. Happy holidays from Cache Valley Bank, member FDIC.
As the year comes to a close, all of us here at Aegis Healthcare want to express our heartfelt gratitude.
This holiday season, we reflect on the privilege of being part of your lives, offering care, support, and compassion when you needed it most.
To our amazing staff who work tirelessly to provide exceptional care, thank you.
To our colleagues, neighbors, and friends, we extend our warmest wishes for a joyous holiday season.
As we look forward to the new year, we're excited to continue serving with even more dedication and innovation.
From all of us at Aegis Healthcare,
we wish you a Merry Christmas and a joyful holiday season.
Advanced Heating and Air Conditioning and Advanced Fireplace and Stove send out a big thank you to local residents who donated to their food drive this year. Advanced Heating and Advanced Fireplace were able to donate hundreds of pounds of food to local organizations, thanks in part to your donations. And remember, if you need your heating unit or fireplace service before it gets Cache Valley cold, call 752-7272. Thank you from the Advanced team for making their canned food drive for local families a success.
Thank you for letting Cache Valley Ear, Nose, and Throat, the Allergy Clinic, and the Hearing Aid Center take care of your family medical needs this year. Make sure you call now for an appointment before the end of the year to utilize your cafeteria funds. Located in Providence and the new Three Peaks Medical Plaza, North Logan. The entire staff, along with Dr. Benyon, Blotter, and Robinette, wish you a safe and wonderful holiday season. Go to CacheValleyENT.com for details. Most insurance products, including Select Med, are accepted.
Security. It's the most precious thing you can give your home, especially if it's guaranteed. No cheap locks, no weak keys, no inadequate hardware, just the expertise and precision and security. Beezer Lock and Key believes there's no place like a safe home, and no home safer than one secured by them. It may seem they only sell locks and keys, but what they really sell is peace of mind. Search Beezer Lock and Key or go to 4th North and 1st West and just add confidence.
Hi, I'm Jay Broadbent with Alpine Home Medical. I'd like to invite you to learn more about us. Since 1997, we've been Utah's premier one-stop shop for home medical equipment. What sets us apart at Alpine Home Medical is the superior level of customer service. We provide home oxygen, CPAPs, wheelchairs, scooters, breast pumps, and so much more. Come on down and get to know us.
Alpine Home Medical, we bring wellness home.
Visit alpinehomemedical.com.
Join the show by calling 435-752-1069 or text 435-339-0321. It's the Full Court Press with Eric Frandsen and Jason Walker.
Be better prepared for winter with a stop at your local Napa Auto Parts store. And if you drive a diesel, it'll run better in the winter when you treat the fuel with Stanadine, House, or Power Service. Go check it out. 5 locally owned Preston and Providence Napa Auto Parts stores. Earlier today, Blake Anderson visiting with the media, and Utah State announcing 19 players, part of their early signing class for the next football season. Only a handful of high school players. We'll get into that. Quite a few junior college and a number of Division I transfers coming into Utah State. And one of those transfers is a quarterback, as we mentioned, who played at Iowa, and he will be coming in and he will compete. Cooper Legas, he's going to compete. He's going to be back. And even McGay Hillstead could be competing to be the starting quarterback this next year. Blake Anderson making it clear it's not nothing's guaranteed for anybody.
And we wanted to elevate every room on the roster. I want to make every position competitive. I think competition makes everybody better. And I don't think quarterback is any different. Matter of fact, it's the most important position on the field. It just is. They're all important, but if you don't have a quarterback, you have no chance. If you struggle at quarterback, you're going to see it in wins and losses. And so, we found Spencer early in the process. I think us playing those guys and him seeing our offense up close and personal had a big impact on his willingness to look at us and really his interest in us. We felt like that a guy that had played that many snaps at that high a level was somebody we absolutely had to look into. But the stats are a little bit misleading. I think you had to look beyond the stats, find out who the person was, what coaches and teammates and people that have trained him say about him on a daily basis, all the way back to watching how he carried himself in high school. And we felt like that he makes the room better. He was not promised anything other than an opportunity to compete for the job. He knew Coop was going to potentially be here. He didn't, we had no way to know if Coop was going to stay or go. He had to assume that he was going to be competing with another senior, as did Coop understand that Spencer had committed to come, and that by him staying, he was going to be competing against another senior. And to me, both of those guys choosing that eyes wide open makes the room better. And as I said earlier, you can't count McKay out of the mix. We saw at times this year where he played at an extremely high level and has all the skill set to help lead us to win. So I love where we're headed. I think Spence brings maturity, experience, a huge arm, decision-making, all that he's done in extremely difficult situations there at Iowa. And either he's going to win the job and make us better, or he's going to make Coop better. And when Coop wins the job, that improved our football team as well. Or who knows where McKay fits in all this too. Maybe he wins it and he exceeds both those guys. But it was all about making our football team better and creating as much competition and as many answers in the room as we could. And clearly we think he does that.
Yeah, and I can't fault the coach or anyone in any organization. If you have a chance to make your team, your group better, you do that. You take advantage of that opportunity. And I'm not saying that I think Petrus is going to come in and be the starter and he's going to lead the Aggies to the next level. Maybe he will, but I don't know. But it's another experienced player to be in the mix there to make those quarterbacks overall at Utah State better.
Yeah, I think he nails when he talks about how, if you look at Spencer Petras' his stats, never more than 1,900 yards in a season, and there was a couple of those where he was appearing in 12 games, a season, and 24 touchdowns and 19 interceptions. Cooper Legas has almost as many touchdowns. He has 19 touchdowns this year. Petras has 24 over 3 seasons, but it's kind of like what I was talking about with the system, and Anderson talks about where it's just you look at the guy, the talent, and and he kind of Blake Anderson talked early on about how Petras was sold a little bit on the offensive style, and this is an offensive style that can really bring out a lot in certain quarterbacks, especially big arm quarterbacks. It brought out the absolute best in Logan Bonner when he came to Utah State, and they combined him with some really great wide receivers. Logan Bonner went from a guy who never completed more than 60% of his passes in a season into a record-breaking quarterback. It helped, Cooper Legas, play really well. Once he was getting his confidence up really high, he was slinging the ball around. Allows a freshman in McKay Hillstead to be slinging the ball around. Even Levi Williams, who's more of a runner, he's looked, okay at times. Even pretty decent in the first half against New Mexico when the weather wasn't acting up. So this is an area where Petras, if he were to become the starter in a situation where that happened, plays 12, 13 games. This is a guy who could come in and borderline set some records himself. He could have that explosive year, if he's the one to win the job, and assuming, he's able to stay healthy the full season. You get, good seasons out of Jalen Royals and whatnot.
Well, and when in the last 4 years has a quarterback started and ended the season completely healthy and not had to miss games?
Yeah, so that's a really important thing to have with Legas and with Petras. So, even Utah State's been down to their third stringer each of the last 2 seasons.
Yeah,
it keeps I think last 3 seasons. Because when Cooper Legas came in the LA Bowl, he was the third stringer.
Yeah,
Aggies went down to their 4th stringer last year.
That's true.
So, yeah, they need depth at quarterback. Guys are more likely to get injured, and Legas, he's a running quarterback. It's going to happen. It's very likely to happen. Even if Petras, if he's a starter, it's likely he goes down. It happens more often these days, seemingly. Or more accurately, they're probably just more willing to actually take guys out of the game when they actually probably should be.
Yeah.
Unlike back in the day, it's I can't feel my left arm. Get out there. You only need one arm.
Yeah, rub some dirt on it.
So
back out there. But one other player that's kind of intriguing is a wide receiver. Not very big, but Robert Freeman IV, 5'8". He's a JC transfer out of American River College, and seems to be some excitement about what Freeman could bring to the Aggies.
Yeah, he was one that I hadn't seen any commitment from him online, because obviously I've been keeping track of a lot of these guys. And Freeman, I think he had 55 receptions for 800-something yards and 10 touchdowns last year. So, good play at 845 yards. So averaging about 70 yards a game. And he's like a 2-time All-American at the JUCO level. I think one as a wide receiver and one actually as a returner. So he's probably going to come in, and depending on what Micah Davis ends up doing at punt return, you may see Freeman at kick return and maybe fighting for that punt return spot. Because now you've got 2 JUCO All-American punt returners on the same team. So wealth of talent there at the return spot. So he's the guy that's going to come in, and the Aggies went from Devin Tompkins to Terrell Vaughn, and I don't know, is Robert Freeman going to step in? Kind of assume Micah Davis was going to assume the role of slot, but he's played a little bit more outside wide receiver, the Z or the X, and Freeman obviously very much a slot receiver, coming in at, I've seen anywhere from 5'6" to 5'10", or maybe 5'9", and anywhere from $164 to 180. So what his exact weight is, I think, is going to be a mystery for a hot minute. But either way, you get the idea. He's about the same size as Tompkins and Vaughn, both in that 5'7", 5'8", $170, $180 as far as weight.
You know, he fits the mold of what we've seen with DT and Terrell. We were able to watch him play in person. The guy literally did not come off the field except for defense. He played on basically every special team and offense and was the most dynamic player in person, but also one of the most dynamic players on tape and a great dude. We absolutely loved his personality when he came in on his visit. And those guys just raved about how hard he worked, what kind of teammate he was, how much he loved ball. It made a lot of sense to us. I don't know how heavily recruited he was. He's 5'8". We're okay with that. He fits our offense with the space and splits and things that we use. We've seen a lot of success with those really dynamic, maybe smaller guys, and he fits the mold and can be just as good as the ones we've had. But we're happy to have him. Think he's going to be a great addition.
Yeah, it's and I mean, looking at him, I've only had a chance to look at some highlights of him. He's a guy that maybe I would have done a bit more of a deep dive into if I had known before today that he was committing. But from what I've seen, and granted it was highlights, those are his best moments. But a guy who plays surprisingly physical for his size. So he'll be fighting with corners out there, playing physical. He's a decent cutter. He's a very interesting runner where he doesn't go down easily. He jukes and dives and cuts. I imagine he'll be a favorite in the screen game. They'll try and use him in a lot of different screens, try and get him the ball and just let him go to work. And then obviously we'll see what he does in the return game if he does something similar there. So very interesting prospect. Keep an eye on him. He's got big shoes he's filling. I mean, Blake Anderson started it off by comparing him to Devin Tompkins, which is yeah, I know these are short guys, but those are still big shoes to fill.
Yeah, very true.
So, yeah, he'll be the guy, a guy to keep an eye on, but he's one of only, I think he's the only like skill position guy that they've brought in so far that you'd expect to make an impact right away. Because I think the only other skill position guy that, I guess there's defensive backs, I should say offensive skill positions. I think the only other offensive skill position they brought in was a freshman wide receiver. So that it kind of goes to show this entire recruiting class is just chock full of offensive, defensive linemen, a couple of linebackers, some defensive backs, and we added a quarterback and wide receiver too.
Yeah,
it's kind of almost an afterthought compared to. But the thing is, those weren't huge positions of need.
Right.
So it's not as huge that they're adding these guys, although it does add intriguing competition to those position groups. Quarterback kind of being the headliner because we always pay attention to quarterbacks.
Right.
But even at wide receiver, they're adding a decent amount there.
It's kind of fun to see players with the same last name on the field, and especially when sometimes there's cousins, but it's also cool when they're brothers. You've got the Motuapuaka brothers. You've got the Sloan brothers right now. Now you've got a few other brothers that will be united, the Andersons and the Miles. And so Trey Anderson coming to Utah State. George Miley is another one reuniting with their siblings. And Coach had a chance to talk about that unique opportunity to play with a sibling.
I think it's pretty cool. It's not one of those things that you just assume is going to happen. So to be in a position where we have several, to be adding a couple more, I just think it's a super cool thing. I have family is huge to me. I've got one older brother that I love to death, and I just think about that opportunity would have been an amazing experience. And so hopefully these guys will make some memories and really. Not take that for granted. It's just not something that at this level is a given or always available. The good thing is we think all those guys make us better. So as much as I like that they're getting to play with their brothers, more importantly, I feel like they can come in and compete and make our football team better. And that ultimately was the overriding factor, just what Trey and both George can bring to the table on that front and how they can come in and really make guys work and potentially be contributors immediately, that's huge. And we had to get better up there. I think, as everybody knows, the O-line and D-line are the places we had to make the biggest impact.
Yeah, it's nice that they're brothers, but what's nicer is that you've got a 6'6" offensive lineman from Pitt and a 6'3" offensive lineman from Baylor that's coming to Utah State.
Yeah, both big bodies that, positions of need. That's gonna, I believe Trey was a 6'6" guy.
Yes,
keep mixing them up. He's going to be pushing the tackle rotation. Ralph Frias at that left tackle, Cole Motes, and Teague Anderson at that right tackle. I don't know. Are we going to see Anderson brothers starting at each tackle spot?
That could be interesting.
That's a possibility.
Yeah.
But then George Miley, obviously he plays O-line. His brother Bo Miley plays defensive line. So we're not going to see them on the field at the same time. But he'll losing some depth at the interior offensive line. But he's a guy that could step in, pushing some of those players that are there already. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, so anyway, cool storyline there for Utah State, but more important than anything is addressing some significant needs for the Aggies. So if you want to learn more about what Gary Anderson was mentioned in the press conference.
We need to get the Gary Anderson jar in here.
Yes, I know. I need drop another coin in the jar. If you want to hear the full Blake Anderson press conference today about the early signing period, national letter of intent, signing day today, it's available on our podcast feed on 1069thefan.com. Coming up next on the other side of this timeout, we got several high school basketball games going on tonight, and the Utah Jazz are in action. Who will and won't be available for the Jazz and the Cavaliers? It's a pretty lengthy injury list for the Cavaliers. It seems to be getting longer. Jazz are playing some inspired basketball right now. Are they going to get another one on the road? We'll talk about that next in the Full Court Press.
'Tis the season, and if you're getting engaged, bring that special someone to S.E. Needham Jewelers. You'll love our extensive selection of beautiful engagement rings. Also, you'll select a diamond from Utah's largest selection of loose diamonds. You'll find a unique ring at an affordable price with diamonds direct from Antwerp, Belgium at internet pricing. It just doesn't get better.
And you may also take advantage of our 12-month interest-free financing.
Open Monday through Saturday, 10 to 7, where Utah gets engaged. S.E. Needham Jewelers, middle of the block, at the sign of the clock.
Hi, this is Ashley with LSS Insurance. Come learn how to make an informed decision for your retirement, Medicare, and Social Security. It's never too early to plan for the future. The third Thursday, December 21st at 7 p.m. Come to a free seminar at our office. Call 752-9493 for details. We will answer all your Medicare and Social Security questions. Come the third Thursday, December 21st at 7 p.m. Call LSS at 752-9493 to RSVP. Walk-ins are always welcome.
Hello, Cache Valley. This is Tom Hale at Blue Sky Restoration, formerly ARS. Remember, got a mess? Call ARS. We want to let you know that here at Blue Sky, we still have the same great staff, we provide the same excellent service, and are ready to help you in your time of need with water mitigation, mold remediation, or a fire. Thank you for trusting our staff and myself for over 35 years with your disaster needs, and we will continue to be here for you. From Blue Sky Restoration to you and yours, we wish you the safest and happiest holidays.
Happy holidays from the entire team at Adams Wealth Advisors. As we celebrate the joy of this season, it's also time to plan for a financially sound future. Wondering about tax strategies or required investment distributions? Adams Wealth Advisors has the answers. The Adams Wealth team is here to guide you through any complexities and ensure a prosperous new year. Happy holidays from Adams Wealth Advisors, where achieving your financial goals is their mission. Call today to schedule an appointment, 752-1702, or search Adams Wealth Advisors online.
No matter how cold it is outside, you can count on a quality-built, super-efficient York furnace to keep you warm inside. York furnaces provide consistent comfort throughout your home. York furnaces are protected by the strongest warranties available. Call Advanced Heating and Air Conditioning, your local York dealer, at 752-7272 to schedule a free evaluation of your system. Advanced Heating will help you save up to 50% in energy costs this season. Online at advancedheating-ac.com.
This is Nate Lamson with Valley Office Systems, your home team when local matters. Valley Office Systems is your local provider for all things office, copiers, printers, furniture, and document management. Proudly serving Cache Valley since 2007. Visit valleyofficesystems.com.
It's the Full Court Press with Eric Frandsen and Jason Walker.
you looking for glasses with character? Go check out Crystal Vision. They'll take your current prescription. They'll fit a pair of glasses to your style. You can find them on 1400 North in Logan. That's Crystal Vision.
I'm pretty sure everyone at the office thinks that I wear glasses because I wear these blue light glasses at work like all day. And then I leave them on my desk when I go home. Just take a poll. Does Jason wear glasses?
Does he or does he not wear glasses?
I mean, I do wear glasses.
Well,
the one pair.
Does he need to wear glasses?
I do not.
For his vision.
Not yet.
A couple of high school games going on tonight throughout northern Utah and points in between. We've got some teams at home, some teams on the road, and some games we thought were going to happen but aren't.
Yeah. I was usually I email ahead, when our broadcasters go on the road, I email the AD. It's like, hey, we're coming. Here's some things we need. And I was emailing the Park City AD. He's like, hey, we got Green Canyon basketball game. And he's like, there's not a game. We don't have a game against Green Canyon. I was like, wait, what? All that I'd been hearing at that point.
Yes, of course.
And then did some more double checking.
Every year.
Yeah, it's not happening.
No Green Canyon at Park City tonight, but several other games will be taking place, particularly one historic rivalry game going on in Brigham City, the Bear River Bears at Box Elder tonight. The girls it's a doubleheader. The girls play earlier in the afternoon. At about 5:15 is when their game is set to begin, and then the boys play at 7. And so we'll have Trent Carter, Josh Tyre there, full play-by-play coverage on Cache Valley Daily and on 104.9 The Ranch. Kind of a Valley rivalry game at Logan High School tonight, too.
Yeah, it is. Preston coming down to face Logan. I think it's a game that's played pretty regularly. I know it was played last year, and it's probably been played a lot over the years. Logan was at Preston last year, so Preston returning the favor coming here to Logan. I think it should be a good one. Preston is a consistently good team. I believe they're 6-3 right now. Logan at 7-1, so two very good teams. Last year, Preston took care of business pretty easily. They were clearly the better team last year, but Logan looking pretty good this year. So we'll see how things go. Logan getting their first loss last weekend, so.
Yeah, that game will be on KVNU, 102.1 FM, 610 AM, video streaming on CacheValleyDaily.com.
Yep.
Ridgeline on the road. They're at Woods Cross tonight, and that'll be on 104.5 The Ranch. And then Mountain Crest, they're at home. They're in Hiram, taking on the Wasatch Wasps, and that'll be on 107.7 FM.
Yeah. Woods Cross, a good team. I got to watch them when they came up here to face Logan. A good team. They had to deal with a lot of turnover, but heck, they gave Logan all they could handle in that game. Ridgeline, we'll see how they match up. I think they should be able to win, but it being on the road may make it a bit more of a challenge for Ridgeline in that one. But I think that one may be the best game of the night, to be honest.
Skyview plays, but they play tomorrow, and they're going to be at Fremont. But busy night for a lot of other teams throughout Region 11 tonight, and we have links and ways to follow on CacheValleyDaily.com and across various different radio stations here in the Cache Valley Media Group family of radio stations. There will be another basketball game going on this channel tomorrow, and that will be the Utah Jazz. Not tomorrow, tonight.
Well, today and tomorrow.
Today and tomorrow.
It's cutting our show short today. We've only got a few more minutes left in the show because of that.
Yeah.
Apologies.
But the Jazz taking on the Cavaliers, and Donovan Mitchell is out from an illness. Darius Garland is out because of a jaw fracture. Ty Jerome is out because of a right ankle sprain. Evan Mobley is out because of left knee surgery. And Ricky Rubio is no longer with the team.
So to answer 9-5's question, he asks, is Sammy Buckets playing in Salt Lake tonight? The answer is that's very likely.
But it's not in Salt Lake, so the answer is no. But will he be playing in Cleveland? Maybe.
Yeah.
It's very likely that Sam Merrill does get some minutes against the Jazz.
Yeah, he's been getting a lot more burn. A lot of that because of injuries to a lot of guys, and he's certainly trying to prove his worth, and he's certainly shooting pretty well.
Yeah, I think they're going to want to see, was that a one-off, what he did the other night, or is this a sign of a developing player who can be more of a contributor for the Cavaliers.
Yeah, he's got to prove that in bulk minutes. Not only can he keep shooting well, but also play good defense and be an overall net positive. So that'll be a big thing for him, trying to prove that he's actually a valuable rotation player. But for the Jazz, we'll see if they play any better on the road. I know Will Hardy was asked what the difference between the team on the road versus at home, and he just says, well, we sucked on the road. That's one big difference.
That is one very big difference.
We'll see if anything changes.
Yeah, Cleveland currently favored by 3.5, though I don't know if that's changed since all the Donovan Mitchell illness news. But we'll have pregame coverage of that coming up here in just a few minutes, starting at 4:50. Tip-off will be at 5 here on 106.9 FM, 1390 AM. We'll be back at things tomorrow as we continue to get closer to Utah State, East Tennessee State, and also Utah State and Georgia State.
Yeah, Prediction Thursday
for the bowl game. So stay tuned for that. Love to get your predictions on the Full Court Press text line. Until then, have a great night, everybody. Utah Jazz basketball is coming up next.